Hi, everybody. This is Lori. I am the founder and CEO of a company called Inclusivity, and we are all about justice and kindness and sustainable fashion. And right now, we are working with artists to plan Artists Who Share, an auction supporting coronavirus recovery. And so this is our podcast, Inclusivi-TALKS, and we are interviewing the artists that are involved in this wonderful auction. And today we are very fortunate to have Christopher Harrison with us on the podcast. And Christopher, welcome.
Thank you very much, Lori. Glad to be here.
Well, we are so glad that you're here. So Christopher, I always like to start by just asking people about their art journey. So sort of tell us, starting, when did you first kind of know you were an artist? How did that start for you, and how did you evolve over time?
Well, I really started very young, like probably a lot of other creative people. I was probably started drawing as soon as I could pick up, a crayon or a pencil or whatever, and just, started scribbling. So as a young boy, I was pretty much a loner, so drawing just gave me something to do. And I was a big TV fan. I was kind of babysat by television, and so I was a really big fan of cartoons and movies, and I tried to emulate those through my drawings.
Okay.
So I would draw all of the Scooby-Doos and all of the Mickey Mouse and try to emulate those. And then eventually I just started getting better and better, and people actually, started to ask for my drawings and paintings and things like that. My parents were, big on traveling and going places, so I think that also influenced me a lot to travel around the country. And my mother was a big fan of antiques, so I would go along with her and my aunt and sisters to antique shows and see a lot of different kind of ways of creating. I think that also expanded my eye, I would say. And then I just kept creating, took art classes, when I was young outside of school, and started to enter contests and started to win, and things just kind of grew from there. And as far as, quote unquote, fine art, at libraries, I would read, books on, the historical art canon of the Michelangelos and Caravaggios and all of those, big names in art, and found a lot of appreciation and kinship in creating those kind of images and objects. And from there, I felt that was something that, I was good at. So I kept developing, my skills, and went to art school in Ohio at the Columbus College of Art and Design there. And actually, my degree is in advertising because I wanted to make sure I wasn't a starving artist. So for years, I was in the design and advertising business, where I did art direction and graphic design and marketing design. After a while, probably, I'd say I probably was in the business for about 15 years on and off. I found that I wasn't really being fulfilled there. I felt that, I kind of had hit the ceiling there. So I, over that time, over the 15 years, I'd still been doing, fine art, whether it was painting or sculpture, participating in exhibitions and things like that. And I felt that was more of my, desire. It was like, that was my retirement plan, more so than just get a gold watch and, sail off into the sunset. Being an artist, you can always be an artist. You can always create something until you're on your deathbed there. So I decided that that was kind of the way that I wanted to go out. So my goal has been to continuously create
Mm-hmm.
and teach as well. I'm also a teacher at the Walker Art Center here in Minneapolis.
Wonderful.
I'm an arts educator there, and you know, I have my own studio in North Minneapolis, which over this quarantine time, I tried to get over there and do some new work,
Mm-hmm.
and just still working on my craft.
Yep. I love that. So I'm going to ask you some follow-up questions from that. So was the first time that somebody sort of asked you to draw something for them? Do you kind of remember how old you were?
Yeah, probably in kindergarten.
Wow.
I was, actually, I guess if I remember correctly, there was, or maybe it was first grade. It was
Mm-hmm.
kindergarten or first grade, but there was a book that was being printed about the school system
Okay.
where I was a student, and they had kids do drawings and poetry, and one of my pieces was selected to be in that book.
Wow.
So and actually it was a written piece that I did.
Oh.
And they would have put in my drawing, but I guess they didn't have enough room. So
Okay.
so that was inspiring too. And kids always wanted, oh, can you draw something for my parents for, Valentine's Day or something like that, and so I would just do that. And it would be, for me, it was just fun, just fun stuff. And I get in trouble in class because you're back there goofing around, drawing when you should be doing work, stuff like that.
So what about do you remember the first competition that you won?
I think I might have been in third grade,
Okay.
I think, or fourth grade. I did a drawing to promote a bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember the Walden Books book chain.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Majors and Quinn. It was like one of the mall bookstores, and I did a drawing to promote them about Library Week or something like that. And it was like a little bookworm who was in the bookstore eating an apple or something like that.
Right.
And it was about get your fill of books or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was kind of very cartoony, but it was fun. I think I won like a certificate or something like that for books or something. But yeah, it was just that kind of stuff for me was just kind of fun stuff. It was just fun, and and then entered in the county fairs,
Mm-hmm.
Exhibitions, stuff like that. Just kind of small little ways to get your work out there. And I know that that's one thing that people who are creatively inclined, are kind of afraid to do. They're like, oh, well, I don't know if my stuff is good enough. But I mean, that's the way that you share your talent with the world. It has to be out there. You have to be brave and put your work out there, even if people don't like it. I mean,
Right.
It's still a step.
Right.
It's whether it's up or down, it's still a step, and it still moves you.
So movement is good.
Right. Movement is good, and after a while, you just the steps go up, and you see some positive change.
So Chris, of the competitions you've won, of the awards you've won, do you have one that sort of sticks out as, wow, you kind of knew you made it, or that was just?
I don't know. I guess when I got the scholarship to art school, I guess that was pretty good. Now that I look back at it, it wasn't very much money. At the time, I was like, wow, that's nothing. Now that would hardly get you a class these days.
Yeah.
I think some validation it's good, by by others, other than your family or friends.
Yep.
That's always that always helps your motivation. So
Absolutely.
So that was really good.
So what mediums have you worked in? Because I know that you work sort of in multi mediums. In fact, one of the pieces that you're donating for the auction is a very interesting piece that has lots of different material involved. So how did you get to that, and where'd you start? How did that evolution kind of happen?
Well, as probably most artists or creative people, you usually start with the things that you can get your hands on mostly. And usually, pencil or
Yeah.
paper, or you go and buy paint or whatever. Um, uh, canvas, canvas is a step up from paper. But for me, it's just what is an interesting way to put something together. So I'd probably say, probably within the past, probably like 10 years or so, 10 or 15 years, I've been kind of more working in different materials, whether it's found items or
Mhm.
just materials that you probably wouldn't assume would go with
Right.
another material. Like the piece that I submitted, one of the pieces I submitted for the auction,
Mhm.
it's a fur piece. It's fur. It's a combination of fur and clay
Yeah.
and acrylic. So, and that piece was created for a solo show that I had at the Suvac Art Center in Minneapolis. I had a lot of different pieces in there. I had sculptures, I had prints, I
Mhm.
had drawings, I had paintings. I had like a huge array of materials and medium
Mhm.
in that show. And for me, it's just what is something that's going to make you stop and look at it,
Yeah.
and and appreciate it for what it is, as
Mhm.
opposed to oh well, that's a nice tree, or wow, that's a beautiful portrait of a person. If
Mhm.
it's something that's like wow, what is that, what is that made of, and then it kind of speaks to you for what it is.
Yeah. So that leads us nicely into my next question, which is, what are your inspirations? Sort of where do you find your art, and what are the things that you look to sort of inspire your art?
um yeah, I would probably say mostly it's just being curious
Mhm.
about the world and about the time that we're in. Keeping your eyes open,
Yeah.
and closing your eyes too, because sometimes your imagination is even more interesting than real
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
So I'm inspired by you know what I experience and absorb around me. Whether it's something that catches your eye out on the street, or
Mhm.
at home, or on the internet, or a movie you remembered,
Yeah.
or a song, or something you read. It could be a street sign, or it could be a walk in the park,
Mhm.
or old vacation from 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You remembered something, you know, uh, you know, old pictures from
Mhm.
from your youth. It could be anything.
Yeah.
And also, artists or other people that you admire can
Mhm.
inspire you also,
So
or
do you
inspire
have
also.
particular artists that you admire?
Well, I'm a big fan of certain art periods
Mhm.
in art history. I'm a big fan of abstract expressionism. Like the Jackson Pollocks, and
Yeah.
the Mark Rothko's, Rauschenberg's, and I'm also a fan of earlier 20th century modern art, like Picasso's and Matisse's, uh, Murau's. I'm a big fan of those periods of art and
Mhm.
time as well. Um, but then also, I mean, there's a lot of more contemporary artists that I'm big fans of
Mhm.
too, whether it's Basquiat, or Kerry James Marshall. He's does some really beautiful figurative work.
Mhm.
Um, you know, Kara Walker is kind of a big name that I enjoy her work, her silhouette works. Jack Whitten, he's African American artist who used a lot of different ways of making marks
Hmm.
on the canvas, which
Okay.
was I actually met him before he died. And he's a really interesting gentleman.
Hmm.
But if you don't know of his work, look his work up.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of newer artists out there too who are awesome. And sometimes you might find somebody cool just on Instagram,
Yeah.
who you'll come across on your stream or
Yeah.
something.
One of the things I'm so excited about with the auction is that we have such a wide variety of artists. So I want all of you to look at each other's work because I think there's just such a depth of expression and ideas. So,
Right.
Chris, does your work ever have any kind of political overtones? Does it have social overtones? Do you have any of that in your work? Would you say?
Oh yeah, yeah. I have different streams of work
Hmm.
because people say, "Oh wow, Chris, man, your work looks just different. Some stuff looks different from other stuff. Like another artist did some this work
Right.
or something like that." But yeah, my work, uh, even my more later work, as opposed to earlier work, um, has messages for me, speaking about, culture, my culture, the African American culture,
Hmm.
the issues that, we, have dealt with from the past that still reverberate to the future.
Yeah.
I'm developing a series right now that's based on Jacob Lawrence. He's an African American artist from the early 20th
Okay.
century. Um, his series Migration, which talked about the migration of African Americans from the South to the North right
Mm.
after the Civil War. I'm doing kind of like an answer to that series. Um,
Interesting.
so it's kind of speaking to his work, but doing it in more of a contemporary, modern style, which is my style. And
Hmm.
my goal is to try and have a show where I have some reprints of his work, and then show the answer through my work to his. So it's kind of a dialogue between the past and the present. And the message is that things really haven't changed very much since then.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
one thing that I'm working on, you know, trying to develop
Hmm.
for a show. And then I my solo show at Suvac, which was called Monsterlands. Um, that show dealt with, I used the monster like figures, imagine
Hmm.
the monster like figures that were a metaphor for kind of the African American culture and humanity. So basically, you kind of follow the life cycle of these monster creatures,
Hmm.
and from birth to civilization to the destruction of their civilization, and then a rebirth of it. So yeah, I do speak to different political um,
Okay.
ideologies and stuff like that. So.
And the piece that you donated with the fur, and I think
Mhm.
it's also with ceramics and acrylic paint as well,
Right.
and the fur. Did that, like, is there a story behind that piece?
Yeah, that was in the
Okay.
Monsterland show. I actually had four of those pieces, and a couple of them sold, which was
Okay.
good.
Yes.
um, but yeah, those were kind of like the little those pieces were called the Amoeba pieces. So they're
Hmm.
kind of like the first people
Yeah.
pieces, like the first creatures. So that one was kind of more of a happier creature.
Hmm.
So
Okay. We appreciate that.
yeah, that's a little happier piece there. So it speaks to kind of like the beginning of humanity and
Hmm.
how it's evolved over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So, what besides the show that you're sort of planning with this early 20th century? Is that when you said he was an artist?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
what's
the
his
early
name again?
That was a Jacob Lawrence.
Okay. So besides the show that you're planning kind of as an answer to his work, what else is your future? Like what are your goals? What are you thinking about?
Well, I just like to just keep creating,
Mm-hmm.
keep finding opportunities to, show my work and also do more teaching. I'm in the process of trying to finish my master's degree now at a university in San Francisco. I'll be doing it online, which is
Sure.
probably a good thing right now other than try to
Yes.
do something on site. So I'm working on finishing that up. And just my goal is to do more education and teaching younger artists, kind of passing on the torch, I guess you
Yeah.
could say, to help people find their own creative passions. So
What do you like about teaching?
I just like to see people figure it out, figure out what what their voice is,
Mm-hmm.
and to watch that growth happen. That's pretty exciting. And also to just hear other ideas and directions that I might not have thought of, because that helps me too. So
Sure.
it makes it, it keeps me stimulated creatively as well.
Okay. And if you were giving a piece of advice for young artists coming up, what would your advice be? What would you say?
Just keep doing it,
Okay.
and be thankful that you have something that you enjoy doing, as
Mhm.
opposed to something that you have to do.
Yeah.
Because I've been in situations too where you have to do what you have to do to survive. But
Mhm.
if you're fortunate enough to do something that you enjoy every day and feel that you could do, for the rest of your life, that's really a treasure.
Mhm. Now, where did you grow up?
I'm from Ohio
Mhm.
originally, a small town called Springfield, Ohio, in uh, southwest Ohio, the southwest corner of the state. And I've been here in Minnesota for probably about 32 years, though, once I got out of school. So,
And how was it growing up in Ohio?
well, well, it was pretty normal.
Mhm.
My parents were pretty middle class.
Okay.
So, I had actually a pretty easy time growing up.
Okay.
My parents were pretty solid, and I had two sisters. So I was the only boy.
Mhm.
So like I said, I was always doing my own thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, I was
Now,
pretty very very kind of I was very much into my stuff, whether,
yeah.
like I said, whether it was comic books or TV or games or something like that.
And it sounds like, Chris, your parents were pretty supportive of whatever it is that you wanted to do.
Right, right. I mean, even to this day, fortunately, they're still around. They still, say, "Yeah, Chris, I'm glad you're doing what you like,
Oh,
doing what you love."
yeah.
They're still pretty supportive. So I was really fortunate for that.
Chris, you said that you've done some writing. Do you still do any of that?
A little bit. I actually, right now as we speak, I have an idea for a screenplay that I need to start trying to find out how to make it happen.
Mhm.
So I'm going to some friends who are writers and see if they can give me some advice on what to do and how to get this thing going. I do smaller things too, like writing a little poetry. Um, I've written a couple of children's books that I'm still trying to shop around here. So, and that way I can do the illustrations and the writing, which would
That's
be
very cool. What are your
cool.
children's books about?
Well, one is about these two kids who think their mother is a witch.
Oh.
so they're kind of watching what she does and seeing the things she does, and so they think she's a witch. And then the other one is about a little boy who goes kite flying with his grandfather, and the kite takes them, to all these places around the world through his imagination. So, and
That
actually,
sounds horrific.
yeah, actually, that one's based on when I was little, because my
Yeah.
grandfather used to make kites out of newspaper,
Yep.
and we would go and fly these kites, and so it kind of came out of that idea.
Very cool.
So yeah, so I'm trying, like I said, doing a book is a lot of work. I mean,
Yeah.
with the internet, it seems like, oh wow, yeah, you can just make a book and do it all yourself, but it's a pretty big investment. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to shop around, see if I can get an agent or something like that, and we'll see if that works. So there's a couple of irons in the fire. I'm also working on a public art project right now for the city of Minneapolis.
Okay.
That'll be in the new public service building downtown that's across from City Hall. And that should go up hopefully in July.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's a metal sculpture. That'll be
Okay.
a metal ceiling sculpture that'll be hanging from the ceiling of one of the elevator lobbies.
Oh,
there.
wow. And what's
So,
the sculpture? What's the theme of the sculpture?
well, the sculpture is called Elements.
Okay.
And so it's the shapes are very abstract, very organic, like my work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of speaks to the elements that we interact with in daily life. So there's organic sculptures that or organic shapes that represent nature, and then there's materials that represent industry,
Mm-hmm.
which are pieces of metal and glass and metal, glass, and lights. So the
Mm-hmm.
whole sculpture will be lit up. And then there's technology, and will be computer parts within the sculpture too. So there's nature, industry, and technology. And it'll be all one big, long, weird-looking sculpture.
Well, it sounds fantastic. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
So you kind of have your hands in a lot of different things at once, it sounds like.
Right. And, that's what artists do.
Yeah.
We just keep doing.
I love it. I will say, Chris, that's what I hear from every artist I talk to, that whatever I'm doing, it's creative, and I'm constantly looking for new ways to explore that.
Right.
So I love that.
Right.
So if you have a life philosophy, just something that sort of at the core of who you are, what you really believe, what would you say that is?
I guess just be happy, just find a way to make yourself and those around you, happy, whether it's creating or doing whatever you need to do, even if you're just sweeping the floor, as long as, you're getting some pleasure out of it, because obviously, life is short and things happen, in an instant. So just try to enjoy the time that you got, really. That's probably what I would say, and try not to waste it if you can.
I like that a lot. So Chris, before we go, I have two things I want to do. One, I want to ask you if you have any art that you'd like to show us. And I know that you're creating a second piece for us as well, along with the wall hanging that we talked about. So I wanted to know if you wanted to show us that. And I also wondered if there were any other pieces just around you that you'd like to show us while we're talking.
I guess, like I said, I'm kind of social distancing here at home. I'm not in my
You're not with your stuff.
No, I'm not with my stuff. But
Okay.
I would say just go to my website.
Yeah.
At harrisonartstudio.net.
Okay.
And
harrisonartstudio.net.
Right. And there's a whole bunch of stuff on there. I have stuff on there from former shows. I have newer works on there. some sculpture on there, public art there. There's different sections on there that have my work.
You have a great website, by the way. You really do. It seems like it's pretty up to date and it has a lot of images on it. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, great.
So, Chris, sort of the last thing that I like to ask people is if they could tell me a story from their life. And what I always like to say is that it doesn't have to be the story. It doesn't have to be like the life-shattering moment that it can be, if that's what you want to tell us. But it really is just a story that feels like yours when you think about it. Do you have a story like that?
I don't know. I guess I guess I would say the trip where I went to Africa, which was only probably like almost 2 years ago now, so it's pretty recent. I thought that was a pretty life-changing event there. I actually had won a grant, a travel grant, to go to Africa. And really, it's like one of the first grants I actually just did myself. I just wrote it. I said, hey, I want to get some money and I want to go to Africa because I'm part of a group, an international art group that we show work together in different parts of the world. It's called Global Art Project.
I love that.
It's actually on Facebook. You can probably look it up if you want to. But there's artists from all around the country and all around the world, and we show artwork at different venues around the world, and we share materials. People mail each other materials, and we make new art of the materials we sell, and then show those artworks. And they about 2 years ago they had announced that they were going to go to Africa. And a friend of mine who's a local art professor here, who I know pretty well, Greg Rose, he said, hey, Chris, you want to be in this group? And I said, oh, okay, sure. And he said, yeah, we went to Italy and all these other places and showed. And I said, oh, wow, it sounds cool. So I said, well, where are you guys going next? And they said, oh, well, we're going to Senegal in Africa. And I was like, wow, that would be great to go to Africa. And so I wrote up a grant, Metropolitan Regional Arts Commission grant, an MRAC grant, for $5,000. And I fortunately got that. And so I used that money to take the trip to Africa. And I never really traveled that far anywhere. I think the furthest I've traveled was like Canada. Canada. So
it's a big trip.
Yeah, it was a really big trip. I was there like for about a week and a half or so, but it was really just a beautiful experience. The people really, really great, very opening, very welcoming. And we actually stayed at an art hotel. So the guy who created the hotel was an artist. So, there was creative tile, there was sculptors in the main area creating. There was like an art bazaar there every day. There was performances. People would perform at night. This was around Christmas and New Year's of 2018, 2019. So there were, there was performances, African dancers, and it was right on the ocean, on the, sandy beaches of the Atlantic Ocean. So, you could go out and just see, the ocean. And it was just really beautiful. We had an art show there. We did some work with some of the locals, artwork with the locals. It was just a really, really special time. And it really helped inspire some of the work I'm doing now, which was really, really cool. The whole idea of, finding out, who you are and how does that relate to, your life now. So that's kind of what I'm doing now, is trying to tell those stories. So, through my art. So yeah, but it was a really, really great experience. It was just like 90 degrees every day, and it never rained. I guess it was a dry season. Yeah. So it was just a beautiful, you'd hear animals and, and all kind of stuff. It was great.
It sounds wonderful. Anything in particular during that trip that you can say, there's just one small story about an interaction or someone you met or an art project that you were working on or something just specific?
Well, I it's really hard to narrow it really down, but I think it's just the idea of being in a place that has so much culture and heritage for me personally. We did meet a guy there, a local guy there named Muhammad, and he was just a guy who just, we just connected with,
Mhm,
and he kind of actually showed us around. He's kind of like our tour guide.
mhm,
So myself and Greg, because there were other artists there too, and they were doing their own things. But Greg and I were pretty much together with this guy, and we would, drive out to hidden beaches and
oh,
and
wow.
and, and go to the smaller cities. So he really got to see
Mhm,
how people live in another country, as opposed to what we have here.
right.
And I in Senegal where we were, the, we were kind of on the outskirts of the main city there. But it was really, really interesting to see how, people still don't have obviously as much as we have.
Right.
I mean, there was, places that were just kind of cinder block houses, and, people would go out and fish for their own food and
Mhm,
stuff like that. But, the people seemed, pretty happy. They were pretty happy with, where they were
mhm.
and who they were. And that's something, we could probably learn a lot
Yeah.
from,
Yeah.
even though we were fortunate enough to have what we have. A lot of people really, um, you know, were about being together. I guess one little story was, Mohammed he said, "Hey, are you guys ready to eat?" I was like, "Yeah." And so he went and got some. We went to the fish market, which was basically just a space where the fishermen just brought the fish in,
Yeah.
and women would cut the fish up. You could watch them cut the fish right there and cut it up, and then they just, wash it, clean it, and then just give it to you. And
Mhm.
then we went back to his place, and his friends would come over and bring other types of food. They
Mhm.
just put it in a bowl, and we all eat out of one bowl.
Interesting.
So it was very, very community oriented.
Mhm.
It's very like, everybody just eats together, and we all just talk and, drink
Yeah.
and everything. It was really, really about fellowship, and that's something that, I think here we kind of lost that a little bit,
Mhm.
but it's something that, I think we can still get to and still, you know, appreciate each other for, who we are. Even if I don't know you, I still appreciate who you are
Yeah.
because we're together.
Yeah. I like that. That's lovely. Well,
Mhm.
Christopher, anything else you want to tell us about before we end?
No, I mean, if you're an artist, just keep creating. If you're not an artist, that's okay. But but
I
find
like
ways. I
that.
mean,
It's okay.
it's okay. But just appreciate the smaller things in life. Whether if you're a parent, or you're working, in a store or something like that, where you're providing somebody with something that they can, you know, live with or enjoy. Just enjoy that, and be happy that we're still vertical.
And I like that very much. Christopher, thank you so much. What a delight to talk to you.
Okay, well, yeah, well, thank you, Lori. Looking forward uh, to the auction and
Oh,
all of the work that you're doing.
it's going to be so exciting. Thank you very much. And to everybody else, thanks for joining us, and we will see you another time.